Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is soloing the Stalker with our now level 15 Stalker Dark Phantom, who has 2 million plus influence, so we'll have tons of influence to get our next set of enhancements when we get to level 17. And I realize it's time to do the Montague Castanella storyline Lost and Found. And so Percy Winkley has gotten lost, and we have to find him again. So Montague is available, I think, after level 10 or 11. Once you come in here at the university, you can click on him anytime you want, and he'll give you this story arc. And this ultimate solution of this story arc is to give you access to the Midnighter Club, which is right here. You see that little like moon symbol? And this is a club that is basically both for heroes and villains, theoretically, at least in character, because I'm going to grab a little badge over here because I remembered that it was there. Um, they're allied with everybody because their goal is to stop things like the Rikti invasion and stuff, which both villains and heroes should care about. So we're going to rescue one of the Midnighters, Percy. Um, what's his name? Percy Winkley. I almost wanted to say Percy Weasley, which of course is a character from Harry Potter, rather than Percy Winkley, who is a character in this game. And the other thing I was thinking, okay, it's not Percy Weasley, it's a Percy Jackson, but no, Percy Jackson's in another story, of course, the story of um, the Olympians, right? The Lightning Thief. So as I said last time, we're in the puberty levels, the young adult teen levels, the troubled teen levels of being a superhero. We don't quite have enough enhancement slots to put all of the enhancements that we need onto our character yet. And yet the villains are going to slowly be increasing in their amount of hit points and resistance and so on and so forth. So it will take increasingly, let me zoom in here, increasingly longer time to complete battles and win and missions until we get to level 22, and we'll get single origin enhancers, and then everything will even out. Now I do know that in the past episode or so I mentioned that I prefer to wait until level 22 to get dual single origins, even though I guess you can get single origins lower than that now. And it might be argued, well, you know, it wouldn't be getting tougher up through level 22 if you would just put single origins on your character now. I know, but I like the original City of Heroes experience. I don't mind that it's getting a little tougher and that I sometimes have to take a knee for endurance. And I like the feeling that my character has gotten more and more powerful, which doesn't happen if you just start with SOs. And in fact, I kind of wish in the lower levels you still had to start with training enhancers, because again, that is how the character feels like it's growing more powerful to me. Somebody did in one of my earlier videos just recently post a comment. I guess I had mentioned that I don't do incarnate trials and stuff, and said, why don't you do that? I'm not going to do that. That's just not a type of content that is going to be enjoyable to me. I've not actually done an incarnate trial, but I know enough about what they're like that it's just not. This is what I like, and incarnate trials are not this. So if you've watched any of my videos, you know that a lot of times in these Ouroboros maps, when you come in here, there's a spawn on this side of the little diamond, right, and a spawn on this side. And I often only see one of them. I come in and aggro one, and then I realize, oh, there's another spawn. And like, no matter how many times I've done it, I always get caught and forget, right? But that shouldn't happen as much. I won't say it won't happen at all, because I can be a knucklehead, but It shouldn't happen as much with the Stalker because I'm going to walk closer to them before drawing aggro, and if I walk all the way into that spot, I should see that there's a second spawn and not make that mistake. But, you know, we're going to just have to see how much of a dumbass I can be. I'm going to just pause for a second here. It's time to turn off my heating pad. I'm still having some problems with my Achilles tendon, so every so often I put a little heating pad on it. That was something the doctor did recommend. You know, it's interesting that a lot of times nowadays, instead of recommending heat, they recommend ice. And I actually, when I'm feeling pain in an extremity or something, or back pain or whatever, I've always found that heat is better. And I remember I had a problem called frozen shoulder, which was actually quite painful, and I didn't know what it was. I went to an orthopedist and we were talking about it, and she talked about, you know, heat, cold. We talked about the heat and cold thing, and she said, do whatever feels better for you. She said, some people like heat, some people like cold. Do whatever feels good for you. And to me, I always feel like the heat kind of loosens things up. I know that the cold reduces swelling and numbs things, but the heat, to me, always kind of loosens things up. Anyway, so every once in a while, if I pause for a bit, it may be to either turn off or turn on the heating pad. You're not supposed to have it on for too long, and it does actually automatically turn itself off, but I just decided to turn it off completely because it was enough, and oh, my foot's feeling a little bit better than it did, but still bothering me a bit. Fortunately, sitting at the computer resting with my foot up is pretty much following the rest and elevate advice of the doctor, so it's okay. I can do this and say I'm following doctor's orders. Wouldn't it be nice if you ever had a medical treatment and the prescribed... Did I miss something here? The prescribed treatment was play City of Heroes? Guys, wouldn't that be a great remedy? Instead of taking some kind of drugs that have awful side effects or having surgery or going for painful physical therapy, the doctor could say, play City of Heroes, that'll heal you. Alright, let's see if there's... Is there like a secret door or something that I missed over here? Was Percy on the other side of the room or something? Okay, so there's nothing over here. These guys are over here, but there's nothing over here. Is there something above? No. What the heck is going on here? I assumed that this would lead somewhere else, but it didn't. Was he back there? So sometimes, guys, you can right-click and put a thumbtack on the map, and it'll show you where it is. Sometimes I do that just to make sure I'm in the right place. There's nobody here. Are we going to have just repeated spawning problems? This is what happened in the last mission, right? That I got really frustrated with, that somebody didn't spawn and I wasn't able to complete the mission. Are we going to have this happen again? Is he in here? Like, I didn't see anybody in here. So there's nobody in here either. Well, where the heck would he be? You guys are seeing this, right? This isn't just me. I don't think it's happened recently on Homecoming, but I feel like on Rebirth I went through a period with my character where just 5, 6, 7 missions in a row all didn't spawn the right stuff. Let's try the trick where you go out and come back in. Sometimes that will spawn things for you. It feels like this map should be bigger. Right? No, I guess not. If you zoom it all the way out, it goes from top to bottom, so I guess it shouldn't be any bigger. That means Percy should be in here. I'm actually glad I'm filming this. I have witnesses. He's not in here. Or wasn't. Let's hope he is. The only other thing I can think of to do would be to abandon the mission and retake it. Let me turn hide off so that if somebody's around, they aggro to me. Sometimes there are invisible mobs, and then all of a sudden you're getting attacked, but I haven't seen that happen in a couple of years in COH. I mean, it happened years ago, like during launch and stuff, where you'd be attacked and you didn't know why, and it was because there was a mob inside a wall or something, and they could hit you and you couldn't hit them, and you were supposed to defeat them and you couldn't because they were inside a wall. But that's why the autocomplete exists. The 3-day cooldown is very frustrating. Like, a 3-day cooldown is fine when we're not having bugs like this, but when you're getting bugged in multiple missions at a time, the 3-day cooldown is actually not effective. Yeah, there's nobody. I mean, presumably Percy should be right in here. Probably over here in one of these corners. But I don't see him. So let's try the only other fix I know of, which is to... Well, let's see. We can restart the mission. We can restart the mission by logging out. So let me do that and I'll bring you back. Okay, we are back. We're going to restart this mission and see if this works. The reload will sometimes... There's a... So let's actually... Screw the fights. We're stealthed, right? Let's go through the mission and see if we can find Percy. If he's not here, I'm going to abandon it. I guess it's possible that it could be set up so that he won't spawn unless you've defeated a certain number of enemies. But let's just see if we can find him, because if we can, then it's fine, right? But so it seems to me like on this map, either you would see Percy here, or you would see him in the final room. So he's not here. They're fighting with each other. This is the dead end, so he's not going to be over here. And then we're going to go around past this. Okay, so now there's the portal. Most of the time, restarting the mission like this will let the guy spawn who's supposed to spawn. I was like, I thought they were attacking me. Alright, so let's go past these guys. There he is. You see, he wasn't there last time. I don't think we have to lead him out, so we'll just go ahead and rescue him. I mean, I don't mind fighting the other guys, but I just want to make sure we get him rescued. There we go. Okay, so we're not going to fight the rest of the mission because this was just a reset to get him to spawn. So guys, I'm glad we recorded that because that'll show you, that's a really good example of how to deal with it if you're having a problem with with somebody not spawning in the mission. A really good way to deal with it is to, first thing to do, right, is go out and come back in, because sometimes that reload will force the spawn. If it doesn't, the next thing to do is stand at the mission door and log out, or you can even do what I did and log out from inside the mission. It'll put you outside the mission door. Just be careful when you do that. I'm a stalker, and I was stealthed, so nobody was going to attack me. But if this door was in an area with purples and there was a purple spawn right here, you could log into being face planted. So think about where you came in. If you can't remember, come out of the mission and stand here and tab target and make sure there's nobody at the mission door. If there is anybody here, defeat them first or go someplace safe like up the hill, right? Log out, log back in, try the mission again, right? If you're not a stalker, you're going to have to fight your way all to the end. The reason I went all the way to the end was to say, let's just see if he even spawned, right? Because if he hadn't spawned, there would have been no point to doing that whole mission. I mean, yeah, you could earn XP from it, but that's not what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to do missions. We're trying to do story arcs, and we're trying to get the badges for the story arcs and the souvenirs and stuff because I like doing that. So I want to do the story. I don't want to just get the XP. So do it. You could do any mission you want over and over again by just right before the mission completion, logging out, logging back in, and starting it over again. But that's not what I was trying to do, right? What I was trying to do was get Percy to spawn because he didn't spawn correctly, right? So there are 3 things you can try if it's not spawning correctly before you resort to autocomplete, right? The first thing is go outside and come back in. See if it spawns. If that doesn't work, disconnect, log back in, try to start the mission over again. If that doesn't work, you can abandon the mission, take the mission again, and try it again. If none of those things work, you're bugged and you need to autocomplete it if you want to get that mission done and continue with the story arc. You could also file a help ticket, but those probably take a while to resolve, right? So to me, I'd rather just keep going, All right, so now what we're going to do is investigate the Richte and the Lost. So this was a battle between the Lost and the Circle. And now he wants us to investigate the connection between the Richte and the Lost. So, spoiler alert, this story arc does tell you about the origins of the Lost and the fact that the Lost are basically Richte, and that the Richte are actually... I don't know if they tell you that here. I think they do. But I'm going to say spoiler alert, and wait until we're inside the mission. I won't enter the mission until I'm done saying spoilers. So spoiler alert. Gosh, this mission is usually on this side of town. Anyway, the Richte are humans from an alternate dimension, right? Who got mutated. They're not aliens. They look like, typical aliens from, Close Encounters type movies and stuff like that. But the Richte are not space aliens. They're extra-dimensional humans who, in their dimension, look like that because they got mutated or whatever. And the Lost are basically accepting being mutated by the Richte and turned into this dimension's equivalent of Richte. That's kind of what's going on. It's way more complicated than that, but that's kind of what's going on. So the connection between the Lost and the Richte is that the Lost are this world's Richte, essentially. Okay. Come on. I unclicked him, I guess. So this story arc kind of explains that. Again, I'm not going to be reading all the text. You can see all the text and that stuff in the Silver Phoenix playthrough because I did all these arcs and I role-played it and I read every single line of mission text. Wait. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. I really didn't want to do that because there's going to be somebody downstairs. See, you can see him down there already. So we're going to let the headman gunman come back up to us. Oh, he's back. Okay. I don't want to be knocked down. Now we can shoot him again. That should take him out. Okay, so there are some other guys back here. Let the hide re-engage. And we got build up. And that takes him out. Yeah, so when you're doing a high knockback attack, it's always better, if you don't want to accidentally aggro guys from somewhere else, it's always better to knock the enemies into a wall or some corner or like a pillar or something so they don't go flying. Right? Because if you knock them back and then you chase them, they can drag you right into another spawn. Now, I do want to point out, I don't think there's any particular programming in general the game is not programmed for the NPCs to be smart enough to do that to you. It's just that they're going to run away from you potentially, or they get knocked away from you, and it just happens to go into the direction of another spawn because that's what's there. So you just have to be careful if you're trying not to do too much aggroing, right? And again, now we're seeing that we're huffing and puffing for endurance because it's taking a few extra blows to defeat them, and other than my toggles, one of which isn't even on, none of my powers have reduced endurance yet or increased damage. So we're basically doing the minimum damage this character can do for the maximum endurance cost. Eventually, that will get better, but it will probably take until the 20s for that to happen, right? Because we don't have SOs yet, and we don't have enough slots on our powers to even put them in. Anyway, level 16, that actually really almost suggests that we should get Placate at level 16 because that's something that doesn't need a lot of slots since we are pretty slot poor, but I also feel like we do need at least one more attack. And I think it's going to depend on whether Siphon Life becomes available, because when that does, I do want it because that'll give us an instant heal, right? Also true that we're going to need... Oh, I was stunned a little bit there. That's not good. We're going to need our toggles too, because we have power shield and kinetic dampening that we need. I don't know how I got re-hidden there, but okay. Any orange salvage? Nope. Okay. And if you look at the rewards, lieutenants are worth really good XP, and a single lieutenant gives 171 experience points, whereas a minion gives 51. In a normal spawn of 3 white cons, then you'd only get about 153 XP. You get more XP for defeating a single minion. Sorry, a single lieutenant, and also they give more influence. So if 3 of these guys would only be worth about 100 influence and 151 XP, whereas a lieutenant is 171 XP and 205 influence. So if you get a chance to fight lieutenants rather than minions, it's always better. And if you remember, I told a story at one point about how I wanted to level up my ninjutsu, ninja sword, whatever it was, Stalker in live during when City of Villains first came out. And I took her into a spot that just had a whole bunch of orange and yellow lieutenants, and I just one-shotted. I just went from one to the next. This is out in the city zone, one of the islands, just basically taking out one lieutenant after another, and it was great XP gain, right? And I had figured out these numbers were different back then, and she was level, I think, 21, and I was heading for level 22, but I had figured out that I could gain a lot more XP from lieutenants than minions. I probably had known that for a while, and so I was like, yeah, let me at the lieutenants, right? Because they're worth so much XP. So I was just going from one lieutenant to the next. There weren't any minions with them. They were just standing by themselves in these on these girders or whatever above a junkyard or something. You may know where I'm talking about. I honestly don't remember. I haven't been in the Rogue Isles in like a couple of years, but yeah, it was. I just super jumped from one to the next, and just it was like basically it was arranged in a square, right? And I just went from corner to corner to corner. I aggroed these guys, and so that's what I was talking about, right? He ran that way. I tried to follow him, and he dragged me into another spawn. Notice we're not gasping and huffing and puffing quite as much right now. The reason for that is that I've got damage inspirations running, and so we're doing more damage and therefore killing, defeating enemies faster. So let's see, we have 4 primary and 3 secondary. Technically I should get another secondary power at the next level because I try to do them even. Alright, so now we need to find 4 computers and defeat C. Dion. Let's just take a look at what's up here. Just be careful when you're down, right? Always come up, take a look, see what's around, then you can always come back down and fight the guys. But just be careful when you're below, because there could be something above that could attack you, like those guys are going to aggro to me. Right? Now, I knew they're there, so I'm not worried about them, but if you don't realize they're up there and you start a fight, you could get dogpiled. Wow, missing at 90%. By the way, guys, this is why I have all those accuracies. Because even with double accuracy dual origins, we're only at 90% against +1 lieutenants. Right? And +1 minions. So if we're going to be fighting +1s, we need that accuracy. That's the other thing I would say, right, for enhancements and stuff. If you want to be fighting +4s, you've got to do something about your 2-hit, because you're at something like -5% 2-hit per level they are above you. So at +4, you're at -5% to hit, at -20%. So you better have something to counteract that. Whether that's a lot of accuracy enhancers, or whether you're carrying a bunch of yellows, or whether you're running focused accuracy, which is a pool power that you can get in the upper levels, or something. Permanent build up somehow with hasten, but you better do something to get that 2-hit up, or you're going to be constantly whiffing. All right, so unless you want to do that, you've got to do something about those 2-hit penalties. So my solution is, it won't be every power, but my solution is probably going to be Shadow Maul, because you don't want to miss with that, because it locks you in place for 3 seconds, and it's a long penalty to miss. And Assassin's Eclipse, which starts out with +1.2 with 1.2 base. I'm probably going to double accuracy those even with SOs. The rest will probably be single accuracy, but I want some guaranteed hits against targets that are that I have a lot of penalties against, right? Why is this not? Why is this saying it's recharging? It's recharged. What are you talking about? Are we having a network problem? I don't know. Also, I want to point out, notice that it said, if you look down there, you maybe zap back the video a little bit. It said 1 minute and 17 seconds recharge. Oh, that's a mistake. I should have kept that blue. It said 1:15 a level ago, right? That's because the DO is now no longer +1 to our level, so it's giving us a little less of a boost. Right? So if we go into enhancements and we look at what this recharge says, it's a 16.7% recharge. But if we look at what this thing says, it's a 17.5% instead of 16.7. So you're losing about 0.8%. I didn't kill him. I thought he was defeated. You're losing about 0.8% per level. So if you think about it this way, right, it's 16.7% at even level, right? It would be 17.5 at +1, 18.3 at +2, and 19.1 or something at +3. Something like that, right? And then at 14th, when it's -1 to us, it's going to go down to 15.8 8 or something. When it's -2, it's going to go down to 15. When it's -3, it's going to be down to about 14. So you're slowly losing your enhancement quality as you outlevel them until you get to +3 to it, and then after that it won't work at all. When it's -4 to you, it just doesn't work, right? It goes red and it does nothing. Now that is only for training single origin, and again, a guy I thought I had defeated is still up. I gotta watch that. Training single origin and dual origin enhancers expire. Inventions do not. That is the benefit of the inventions. They are pound for pound more expensive to craft and slot than single origins and stuff and dual origins, but since they don't expire, it can definitely be worth slotting them in. So you just have to sort of think about what is it that you want to do. Do you want to pay a small price every 5 levels, or do you want to pay a big price once and then not have to pay it again? And my thing is, if the enhancement's going to be what I want to keep, then yeah, I'll do it once. But if it's something I'm not going to want to keep, then obviously you would want to pay less because you're going to swap it out later, right? So for example, when I made that level 10 invention, I knew I was going to swap it out, right? So it really wasn't even worth putting it in there, except that you made it for free because it's part of the tutorial. Alright, if they're going to knock me down, I got to put this on. It's going to take some endurance, but we'll just rest afterwards. It's not going to let me attack him, right? Okay, so let's pull back so that he comes out of the wall. Okay. So what's happening now is attack sequences that used to drop the enemies are leaving them with a sliver of health because their health has gone up faster than my ability to damage them has gone up, right? You do more damage every level, right? So if you have an attack that does, just pulling numbers out of the air, 10 damage at level 1, by level 15 it's going to be doing 15, 16 damage, right? But the enemy's health has gone up by more than 60%. So that means that if the enemies had 30 hit points at level 1, it would take 3 10 hit point punches to take them out. By level 15, 3 16 point punches is 48 damage, but they're going to have 52. And so you're going to have to do another blow. And so my brain is still back in the level 13 and 14 mode of how many shots it was taking to defeat these guys. And they're still having a sliver of health because that's kind of how much they've exceeded my ability to damage them through leveling up, right? And so the only way to counteract that is to start putting your DOs and your SOs or your inventions or whatever on your powers. Okay, now this is going to be a tough fight because all these guys are going to try to attack me. So, there we go. Let's take CDN out first. And I'm going to try to aim him to the wall so that he doesn't go down into the pit in case there's somebody else down there who hasn't aggroed yet. Luckily, the other guy hasn't aggroed to me. Not that it matters too much, we should be alright. Okay. Now we just have to assassinate this guy and then deal with the 4 computers, and these little glowing things are Richti computers. Or, shall we say, alternate Earth human computers. I have to say, I do like the aesthetic of a lot of the factions. Lost and Rikti are very cool. I mean, look at the design of this stuff. I think it looks really awesome. Am I being ambushed? Oh no, I just... This guy was up here and I didn't defeat him. No problem. Anybody else? No. Okay. Yeah, because when you click this, it reveals you. So he must have been paired with that lieutenant somehow and ended up on the other side of the room. Don't know how that happened. That completes the mission. I do want to point out, guys, we get 375 experience and 375 influence for doing this mission, which is pretty cool. And I want to talk a little bit about missions, but we're going to pause here. I'm going to readjust my heating pad, and I'll be right back. All right, we are back. So I did want to talk about mission experience. So you get 375 at this level mission experience and 375 influence. You might get something else like a recipe or a salvage or whatever for completing a mission. Back in the original launch version of the game, there was no bonus XP for completing missions. You just got the XP for the mobs you defeated. And there was no XP for completing missions. And what happened was, people said it's faster to go into hazard zones and street sweep than it is to go through missions, because to get to your mission you have to travel through the zone, and then the mission loads, and then you have to go and find the enemies in the mission. And some of the missions have them very close together, and other missions you're wandering all over the place looking for them. You're trying to find a hostage, right? You might be bugged. Okay, this is the mission that I thought of that was on this side of town. And so they said, you know, it's not as efficient as just going into Boomtown at this level and just street sweeping. And so in order to solve this problem, because players weren't doing the mission content, they were just leveling up on the street and then saying the game was boring, right? In order to fix that, what the developers did was they added the mission XP bonus. And I think they had to do a couple of different cuts at it before they figured out what was the most efficient or the best bonus amount of XP to give you for a mission, so that the people would be willing to do it, right? They didn't want to have too much, but they needed to have enough that it was what they wanted was for it to be, in terms of time, more XP per hour if you spent an hour running missions than if you spent an hour just street sweeping in a hazard zone. And it worked. Missions are more efficient than street sweeping because of the bonus XP. Right? Because you get 50 experience per minion at this level, right? Oops, went the wrong way. If you get 375 mission XP, that's like defeating 7 or 8 minions more than the number in the mission. Right? So you get all the XP for the minions and lieutenants and stuff in the mission, and then you get the XP for completing the mission. And I think part of it was, so there's the mission XP, and then there's the story arc XP, right? To encourage people to do story arcs. The story arcs give you even more bonus XP. They give you a free SO, and they give you reward merits now, which didn't exist back then. But at least the idea was they wanted to convince people to go ahead and play the content. And we've now leveled up to 16, so that'll make the rest of this mission easy. God, these guys are such cowards. So yeah, that's kind of the origin behind why Mission XP is the way it is, Story Arc XP is the way it is. Neither of those existed in its current form prior to whatever update they added it, right? None of them existed when the game first launched. Wait a minute, I gotta zoom in. Sorry about that, guys. None of that existed when the game first launched. It was added later to encourage people to do the content. Now, it did work, but there was a consequence, guys. So maybe you should pause the video and think about what was the consequence of doing this mission and story arc XP that got everybody back to doing their missions. Go ahead and pause the video. Tell me what you think it was, and then unpause it and see if you're right. One of the consequences is if you go into the hazard zones now, like Boomtown, like Craze Folly, nobody's there, right? Back in the day when street hunting was more efficient than mission running, you had people in the hazard zones doing zone shouts, looking for groups, asking for more people to join their groups and so on, because they wanted to do the street sweeping, and it was more efficient to do it in groups than to do it by yourself, right? You could get through a lot more spawns, and some archetypes, especially back in the day, couldn't even handle an even level or even -1 hazard zone spawn because there were just too many enemies. Now, scrappers and tankers could handle it once we got to the higher levels, post level 30, maybe even post level 25, um, but controllers and defenders had a really hard time, and blasters might have been able to do it if they did enough damage fast enough. But if they didn't, then they were going to get swarmed. There are a lot of different rules now that make things easier. For example, if you get Mez, you can still use a few of your powers, so you're not completely locked in place. So they've made Mez less devastating because it was so bad for controllers and blasters and such. But back then, Mez was incredibly devastating, and it was going to possibly lead to a face plant. In fact, it often did. And if you're like a blaster or something and don't have any defenses, and so hazard zone spawns could be very dangerous if you tried to take them solo. But if you did them in a group, you could go through them so fast and get through many XP, right? You would just get you through so much XP that you would be able to gain your levels really quickly compared to mission running. And so you had people in each of the zones doing look for group or looking for more to do hazard zone runs. Today, when you go into a hazard zone, they're wastelands. Nobody goes into the regular hazard zones. The only hazard zone that is inhabited is Fault Line, because they went into Fault Line and created a series of story arcs in Fault Line that are interesting and fun to do, and so people go into Fault Line to do it. And they also modified Fault Line to have a non-hazard section where you can level up and talk to contacts and go to the hospital and so on. Whereas if you look at Paris Park, it has none of those things. If you look at Craze Folly, it has none of those things. If you look at we're just looking for CD on. We don't need to feed everybody here, I don't think. If you look at any of those zones, Boomtown, etc., you're going to see that none of those features are present, so nobody bothers with those zones. So one of the probably unintended consequences of making missions and story arcs so much more attractive is that it took everybody out of the hazard zones, and there now aren't a lot of people in the hazard zones anymore. You all by yourself? Dude, where are your guards? So now I really have a decision to make. And that is, do I want to get Placate? Do I want to get something like Shadow Punch? Do I want to get another Toggle? I need all of those things, but it's going to take 3 or 4 levels to get there. 4, not 3, because 3 is just enhancement slots. There's our Got Burwatt. Oh, come on. Come on, why is this not... There we go, okay. Found a clue, and that's him telling us about what the Richter are up to and so forth. And we're going to call our contact. And next, we're going to go to Blide Square and level up. This is our last level before upping to our new set of enhancements. So I want to stop here and just show you guys where... Well, let's level up first, and then I'll show you. There he is. Train up to a new level of power. Next level. Kinetic dampening is an auto power that increases our resistances. We're going to want that at some point. We cannot get Siphon Light. We can get Placate. Oh, man. I want all of these. I'm torn, honestly, guys, because we don't need pool powers, but I'd like to get... We can't run another toggle, though, so we may as well wait until 20 or 22 to get this one. Placate would be so useful. Kinetic dampening is auto, so we can take that anytime. I think we're going to get Shadow Punch. And we're going to move that. Let's move that there. No, this way. Okay, so that's Shadow Punch. All right. So we're going to want to put a accuracy enhancer on it. We don't have any of those. All right, so what I wanted to show you. Remember that this was 16 point something percent. It's now down to 15%. Right? We just lost like a percentage point. Right? So this one is at 16.7. This one's at 15. So we've lost 1.5%. Right? And then we're going to go down to like 14% and then 13% as you get away from the level. Now, we're only going to go down to minus... We're only going to use them at -1, right? Because when we're at -2, when we hit 17, we're going to immediately swap them out. So we're not going to play with them at level 17 at all. We're just going to play with them at level 16, and then as soon as level 17 comes, we'll swap it out. All right. Let's do one more mission, and then we will stop for now. I do want to point out I am way behind on posting, not because I'm not posting enough, because I post every day, but because I'm on break. It's Christmas break, for winter break, whatever, for my university. I was going to visit my sister, but I didn't because my foot hurts and I can't drive 500 miles over 2 days the way my foot is right now. So we're going to be doing Zoom and stuff this week instead, and I just went and mailed all my presents to her and my nephews. But I'm basically home for 2 weeks, and I do have some work that I can do, but it's the holidays, so I'm not going to do a lot of work, and I have tons of time. Okay, so this is Lady Jane. So now you're going to see cheesing a mission with a Stalker. I've done it already, but this is going to cheese it even better. So we got a boss, and we've got our minion here, and we're going to ignore them, and we're going to go find Lady Jane's stash. What you have to do in this mission is you have to take Lady Jane through the mission to her treasure chest. She's got the combo to unlock it, right? So we can find the treasure chest, but we can't unlock it. So this is a dead end. We don't need to come this way. So these guys are not necessary to fight. So we're just going to keep going here. And we're going to go this side. We're going to go this way, and I think it's this way that we have to go. So what I'm going to do is find it, and I'm going to defeat my way back to her. Is this a dead end? No. We're going to find where we're going. Here it is. This is the chest, right? But if I click on it, it's not going to let me do it, right? It's going to say I can't do it. So now we're going to start back here, and we're going to defeat our way back to her. By the way, I much rather fight these guys with her than anybody else. Because, first of all, I can assassinate them, right? And second of all, hitting them reduces their accuracy, so they're less likely to hit me. They do accuracy debuffs to me, but if you're going to fight an accuracy debuffing enemy, Dark Assassination is about as good as you get because it makes it harder for them to hit you, and you can also take them out really fast with the assassin power. So, as objectionable as the Circle of Thorns spirits are, I suspect they will be dramatically less objectionable with this character than with anybody else. And now what you should see is, with this thing recharging as fast as it does, and all of our powers, how did he get rezzed? Buddy, you're just going to get reassassinated. Okay, so what I was saying is, now that we have these powers, this extra power, we shouldn't need these very much. And I'm probably going to kind of pull that back because we're probably not going to use it that much. And we shouldn't really need Brawl anymore either, to fill in the gaps in the spaces of our attack chain. So now the next two things I want to do is get that auto power and get Placate. As much as I like to do even leveling power selections, I might get Placate first, which is another primary, just because it's so useful to have it and shed the aggro, and then get our auto power at 20 and our other toggle at 22. I don't think we'll aggro that guy, so. I'm so used to using that staff, I just used it by default. The other nice thing about having Shadow Punch is we now have 4 attacks that can debuff our enemy. So we should be able to get them almost to like minus 20. These guys love to run away when they have a sliver of hit points and then come back at you later after they've made you forget about them or whatever. Okay, that got rid of him. He tried to run twice. And the problem is they will vanish, usually. And then you cannot actually hit them, right? Because they just disappear. They, like, go intangible or whatever. So we're going to battle our way back to Lady Jane, who is, I think, here. And then when we get her, the whole area is clear. Now, you might ask, why do this? Lady Jane's an NPC. She could help me fight, yes. But Lady Jane is a classic, almost like launch version blaster. She has no concept of managing her own aggro. She will over aggro. She will fire at spawns that you haven't engaged. She basically designed to grief you. Maybe not on purpose, but she sure as heck acts that way. And as a consequence, in order to keep her from dying, the best thing to do is to not have her get into any fights. I'm so sick of getting knocked down. But we cannot, at this point, maintain the toggle. We're already chugging for breath. There we go. All magical SOs, which we cannot use. There's LJ. Can we hit, please? Oh, he's slowing me down. Don't want that. Jeez. Okay. So we haven't aggroed them, so we're going to do a quick rest, and then we will get in there and take out the boss. And then just lead Lady Jane. Put our toggle on. This should be no problem because we're going to assassinate him. See, we take out 2/3 of the hit points of the Ruin Mage. Just in one shot. And now, it's just a matter of this guy. And now Lady Jane is all rescued. And now where are we going? Straight up. Come on, LJ. Alright, we're going to lead LJ to this spot. Perfectly safe. Easiest way to solo the Lady Jane mission is with a Stalker. Super easy. Alright, so we're going to need to go see Argot Barawat. I guess we can do that, and then we will stop. Because this will be quick. So we just want to go, let's go Super Base. Oh wait, let's go Atlas Park. It's going to let me do that, so we'll go Atlas Park. And then we'll just super jump over to the Vanguard Tower, where Argot Barawat is. And I don't know, let's see if we can see it. Can we see it? Up in the sky, somewhere, in Atlas Park, there used to be a blimp flying around. And when I had super jump, I kept trying to jump up to it and land on it. And then finally one day, I don't see it. Finally one day, when I had flight, I flew up to it and tried to land on it, and I found out you can't. It doesn't have a mesh on it, so you just slide right off. Kind of like the train. Coming out of the train station, you can stand on the tracks, but the train, if you try to land on it, you just slide right off because it doesn't have a mesh like this floor that you could stand on. Got an Explorer badge. Found another tip. That's a tip for Atlas Park. I may get some of these off screen, but I'm not going to waste your time watching it. There's our Gopper Watt. So we've taken care of him. And then we wanted to talk to Gregor Richardson, who I think is in City Hall. And then we're done. So I hope you guys are enjoying. Notice we got 500 XP and 500 influence for the last mission. That's probably because we leveled up. I still don't know where the blimp is. It's got to be around here somewhere. There it is. You see it up there? So let me show you guys. We do have a flight power. So let's put it here. Somewhere there's a flight power, right? Like a flight pack? Rocket pack, right here. Let's go up to it. Unless they've changed it, you can't sit on it. So I spent all this time super jumping up to the top of one of the buildings and jumping, trying to jump down on it when it, I like watched its path and everything, trying to jump down on it when it floated by. And I tried to jump on it, and I don't think you can. Yeah, see, you just slide right off. You can't land on it. But I spent a lot of time one day here in Atlas Park. I was pretty high level. I think it was like 18th, 20th level. And I was just trying to jump to the tops of the buildings. There were no temporary flight power, so all I had was super jump. I was just trying to jump to the tops of the buildings so that I could land on the blimp because I thought it was like the top of Atlas, and I thought maybe there's something cool to find up there, but it's just a decoration, and you can't land on it. Unless there's some way to do it that I've never learned. If there is, feel free to post about it in the comments. All right, so Montague, thank you for the missions so far today, Mont, and we will do the rest of your story arc next time. Until then, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been Souling the Stalker on City of Heroes.